are headed to a boat launch I haven't been to. I couldn't even tell you when, which is saying something on Erie here. We're down on the west end, getting ready to pick up my buddy Chris. We've got the tiller in tow. We've got a 16-inch Apex on the tiller there. We're gonna mess around with a little Mega Live 2, show you some images from that. Messing with that this winter. If you haven't caught some of our ice fishing stuff we did this winter, that is not okay. Probably gonna do some jigging, casting, stuff like that. Gonna try some shallow water stuff. Lake is definitely turned up and burned up, so really don't know how this is gonna go. But afternoon deal, kind of pulling a double dipper here. We're gonna go down and do something a little different. You guys said you want to see some jigging? Jigging we going.
Yeah, mic check 1, 2, my friend. I'm back like I never left and back at it again. So fly in the sky, they just blowing the wind. You can tell how I dressed that I'm in it to win.
Come on, go blue. I got it. No, really? We gotta tape it? Everything these Ohio State fans will do.
National champions. We're almost done, don't worry. This is gonna take longer to get a fish on.
3, 4, bring it right to your door. And if you like what we giving, let me give you some more. Stay calm when I ring the alarm. The party going till dawn, so if you ready, come on. Style is gorgeous, God endorsed it. Moving fast, lane in Porsches. Grabbing stars, life in orbit. Don't water it down, I'd rather you torture. Hold your tongue, don't bite the bullet. Say it loud, they thought we wouldn't. Cross the line, we took the win. So tell me if you had enough, cause we at it again. Come on! Back at it again! Back at it again.
Christopher, almost vertical jigging here.
Yep, he whaled it.
I already know what you got on. You got a walleye on a little purple nurple. In the Beckman, here we go. Man, they fight hard, don't they?
Oh yeah. Especially when they're not in very deep water here.
Show them what we got going on there. That's a nice little healthy one.
Yep. Got him more with my stinger hook.
Rolling around. I bet you probably 80% of your fish come on the stinger, seems
Yep.
like.
But nice male.
That's a nice one, actually. So we're using a combo of things out here. We're trying some plastics. If you watched our jigging deal last year, the plastics was pretty good. And then hair jigs is Chris's favorite. It's hard to get that out of his hand. And then I've got a blade bait on now, a new Rapala blade bait. But yeah, Chris, we're gonna let that one go.
He's spewing all over your boat.
Yeah, we're gonna let the science experiment. Yeah. Would you like to explain to the kids at home what just happened there?
I'm right here next to you.
Mr. Chris,
Is that one on that blade bait?
No, this is on
a jig.
This is on my favorite.
Oh yeah.
So there's a good little talking point here because no doubt what was happening here down the throat. That's one thing about the plastics out there. So that's a Zman. And you can see he had that gobbled up, really working it hard. Like if you watched our show last year, again, we're gonna get him out. Look at that. He's got a little situation. We're gonna let him go back to the clinic. We're gonna let Chris's kids, if they're watching this, him explain what just happened there in the boat. But little Z-Man, this is the the Minnowz 3-inch, and I really like the white one there. Even though we're not that deep of water, I've got a big old VMC Moon Eye. It's a 3/4, really working it hard, and that fish absolutely thumped it. So even though we're not skinny water, or we are in skinny water, don't be afraid to really work it. If you watched that show we did last year, that was the thing that took me way too long to figure out, and the subtle thing, because of the conditions, just wasn't the deal. So Chris is working that hair jig pretty good. He got a nice bite, and here we go again with a little Z-Man Minnowz. Chris, what happened there?
Well, kind of missed him.
You know, that's the crazy thing about it is the hair jigs, I mean, that's a really good bait to have. If you don't have some of those, you know, with you or at least tied on, you're crazy. But when using that Zman plastics like that in the last handful of years, even in the really dirty water, the thing I like about it is they really, just like that last fish I had, went right down the throat. And you can work them fast, and they just seem to bite them. But then when you get in the clean water, a lot of those other baits don't work. Hair jigs will work, but they really get on that plastic good too. But they just seem to be, I don't know. You ever see that, Chris, where it's like, you know, you get on the stinger hook a lot on that, but with the plastics, man, they're just
Yep, they just draw on it.
Mr. Christopher. Oh, look at you go. That's a little nice one on that jig. Here we go. Show them what you're working with there. So we made a little
on the old hair jig.
Made a little move, and we're actually in the dirty water stuff that's almost too dirty, but it's a little hump there that we know.
But man, check how white that fish is.
Yeah.
All right, well here you go. Live another day.
Well, we have a science experiment in the boat again, but little hump. We just moved Lake Master, nice little hump up there, and boom, boom. You know, Chris, we moved up there because we kind of got out of the fish a little bit and got up into this dirty stuff, and there's boats definitely around here. Saw a few fish caught, but it's kind of funny out here how, like, you have to have dirty water, can't have dirty water, but after a few days you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's like even right now, I mean, you cannot see your jig once it hits the water. It's so dirty. But the problem is these fish here, for some reason, they don't like the dirty water. But when you fish other rivers, you know, like the Illinois River and stuff, where it's pretty much dirty all the time, the fish are always snapping. But here it seems like it takes a couple days for them to get acclimated in the dirty water, and then they start hitting.
Oh, Mr. Chris.
I think I'm tangled my other pole. See, that's what happens.
Oh boy, you
Get double fisting and
two-fisted fellas. You know, it's just crazy because oh, you just got a hot.
I'd say I just tangling everything up now.
Well, while you untangle that, we're going to talk about, you know, like our last jigging deal. We really had to, you know, cast away from the boat, which I'm still doing. And Chris is just straight up and down, just cracking the bottom. But we are in really dirty water, and so you probably don't have to get as far away, even though we've got some boats and things moving around. But yeah. Cracking
It's still the hair jig, but on the stinger hook.
On the stinger. I would tell you, I mean, don't you think? I mean, I bet 80% of the fish, the stinger comes.
You know, mind you, I lasted a moment while I was at it.
Yeah, you were like a cowboy. Chris the water cowboy. But yeah, I mean, the stinger hook, my buddies always say that they don't even care about the main hook because the stinger hook's almost always coming into play on those. So I'm gonna show you a little tip in a minute on the VMC stinger hook. A little setup I like.
All right, back in. Going into your other rod. See, I'm getting good at tangling rods over here. Yep,
well,
I hooked yours.
As long as you're catching, the hair jig is definitely the...
Oh, he's gone. And look it, he wanted black too.
Wow. So Chris, you know, catch him on the hair jig, nothing new out here. This is a VMC bucktail. It's got the big eye on it, nice quality VMC hook. Stinger hook definitely is a real good deal on that. I bet at least 80% of the fish are hooked in some way, shape, or form on that stinger. And this is kind of a traditional clip-on stinger like we use for ice fishing. There's just this little metal eye deal, little hook, right? But the problem is you know, where you can hook that. A lot of those jigs traditionally have another little hook for it, or if you hook it up here, it's just not a good deal. It tends to get tangled up, plus it's not far enough back. So VMC's got a really good thing. I think it's called the Snap Cap, if I'm not mistaken. These are really, really cool. So again, that little metal eye, what we're gonna do is just place this little rubber helmet, if you will, over the top. So a lot easier before I needed cheaters, just saying. And so what we're gonna do then, Chris has got one.
Got another one on.
Chris has got one. He's gonna make me interrupt my tip, which we'll come right back to that.
I guess I could quit fishing for a minute if you guys.
So this is what the stinger hook is for. So we're gonna come back to the stinger hook. All right. We're gonna let him deal with that. But so now that's going to get that a little bit farther back there, and that's what, you know, a lot of the fish Chris are hooking right now is on. But the key on this thing is now we can take this off. So a lot of the, you know, it's got those kind of like rubber dipped ones. The problem is once you put them on, they're kind of on. So if you want to switch colors, gets hooked up, whatever, the thing gets messed up, you don't want to have to cut that thing off. These are removable. So really neat little tip there. So you have a stinger hook, but you can remove it, change it out, whatever you want to do. Oh my, I had to do a little two-fisted action.
He come unhooked on the net.
Came unhooked in the net. We'll let Chris deal with the thing, but the old moon eye again. Again, really big head, 3/4. Minnowz. Like the white in the clean water, like the white in the dirty water, but we aren't really having clean water. When you just said the other second, you were like, well, we should maybe slide back to the cleaner water. So
yeah.
It wasn't clean. It was just like barely could see your stuff, right? But anyway, just kind of hopped them back and forth, and that one came, and Chris has been catching them right below the boat there and just doing something different where, you know, in the past, you watched our video last year, we had much cleaner water. We were on a harder bottom than we are now. And I was casting away from the boat doing the swing like we traditionally do, doing the summer casting and things like that. Right now, it doesn't seem to matter because the water's dirty enough, you think, Chris, that's just, I mean, we're almost below the boat. Where you do that a lot of times and that water's a little cleaner, you just aren't going to get bit. Like they just, the sense of the boat or what have you think?
Yep, no, I agree. I mean, right now with everything being dirty, I mean, like I said, literally you cannot see our lures once you stick them in the water.
But again, even with what we're doing, you know, you're watching Chris, he kind of does a uniform jig or whatever, and just figuring out that cadence if you're, you know, because we're using big stuff. Like when you move that rod, you don't realize he's got a 3/4 ounce VMC head on that. You're moving it a lot more than you think, you know?
Yep.
No?
Yeah, and like you say, and then a lot of times though, that hard pound on the bottom is what's helping attract the fish too. Helps give another, you know, some sound to the presentation.
Just about dropped 1,000 in the water right there. Another one on the plastic and missed them. Maybe I should put a stinger hook on this thing. Did you put a stinger in your plastic?
I didn't.
That one, he smoked it, but even like the one that Chris just netted for me 2 seconds ago, I, besides losing the fish, I almost lost a G Loomis rod, which would have been amazing. But yeah, that one fell out right in the net.
This one?
You know, Chris, we just hit that 15. Here we go. Oh,
A good one.
this is on the hair jig. Chris said black, so we went VMC black. Now where? Oh yeah, just chin. Got the little stinger hook in there.
Yeah.
Just barely. You look at that, just barely on the stinger hook. It's crazy as dirty a water as this is if you don't have the stinger. I'm telling you. One of my buddies says he can cut the front hook off, you don't need it, you need the stinger. Chris says if you don't have black, I can tell you this was hooked good enough though, but just a nice little walleye, and as we like to say, luckiest walleye in Lake Erie. So I guess we got her dialed in a little more.
Yeah. I think we got to add some stingers to our plastic.
I just definitely
might
missed
help
one.
a little
I
bit.
definitely missed one. But again, you know, you watch these videos and, you know, rather, I don't care if we're spinner fishing, crankbait fishing, or whatever, you know, you can learn from all this stuff, right, Chris? But it's like, if they watch the last jigging video and doing what we're doing right now, granted, slightly different conditions, we couldn't get bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the same thing, whether it's the cadence, it's the lure. And so don't watch these things and get so literal of like, that's why we don't often tell you like, hey, we were 40 feet back on a husky jerk, or we were this color. Chris runs trips. He's a captain as well. And we fished, you know, we've been fishing over 20 years together.
Yeah.
And so many times we're fishing side by side out there. And at the end of the day, we're both catching, so we don't communicate much. If we're not catching, we communicate a lot. But, you know, when we're both catching good, at the end of the day, it's funny how I ask him, hey, what were you doing? And we were doing something totally different, even though we were 100 yards apart. And sometimes it just doesn't matter. You got to do those little things, or you just have something else working. But here, they want her straight up and down now, because I think we're making more steady contact with the bottom.
Yeah, and yeah, and just like another thing, I mean, we had a pretty nasty weather pattern here lately, and a lot of wind and rain, and like I say, the water is very dirty here, and we still came out, gave it a shot, and to show, and it's honestly been a very successful day so far. So.
Yeah, the reports were not like run out here. I got to be honest, I thought we were just going to check out some new gear for a hot minute, but like the one thing we haven't done yet, and maybe it's something we try, is putting some of that Zman Elastex plastics on the hair jig, because they definitely, I think, seem to want the hair jig a little more, even though I've banged several on the Zman. You ever do that, to bulk it up, like especially it gives that slower fall? And
honestly, even too, with the dirtier water, a little bit larger, like you say, more profile, I mean, it can't hurt anything. On that plastic.
Chris, on the Zman, see, I'm gonna make you a believer yet.
I know, and I kept talking about putting that stinger hook, and it hasn't quite made it on there yet either.
Well, we got that, I think it's got a 3/0 those.
Oh, he's gone. I'll see, maybe I ought to put the stinger hook, because maybe he wouldn't have left.
Well,
but that's on that nice, really chartreuse firetail one.
That's a fire tiger head there. It's got a moon eye. You know what? Why don't you try putting a stinger on there and see how that, because they're on that plastic too. So I've got two rods in my hands, and they're totally different, even though they're both G Loomis 782 models. This is the Conquest, and I would tell you that's a little more slow, a little more parabolic, which is why I have braid on there. So I've got a 2500 Shimano Vanford with 10-pound P-line and Durex. And then on this one here, I've got a 2000 size with 10-pound P-line CX Premium, which is basically a fluorocarbon coated mono. And a lot of times you get way more bites on one of these rods, and that's often when we're doing two-fisted like this. I'll have them both on, especially when the bite is slow. This mono rod just seems to catch more fish, and that smaller reel has a little bit slower retrieve ratio. So when we're not doing what we're doing now, which is basically hanging them over the side, I a lot of times just seem to catch more fish with that. That mono's a little slower, but you also notice they're both high vis, and that seems to be really important to watch that line angle. And see those fish, they're barely just on it. So surprising how they can just barely get on it. So a lot of plastics, we use a ton of plastics. Keeping them organized can be difficult. We got the Lakewood billfold, this is the larger one. And it's got little pockets sewn in here so we can kind of keep these organized. I tend to write on some of the sides and try to keep all the colors kind of like-minded. Then I usually just sit the ones that I'm using or catching them on top there. But really nice deal, it doesn't hold the water. I know a lot of people are using freezer bags and things like that, but they don't hold them well. You got to go through and try to find 100 of them. They hold water, they don't look good. This thing works for a lot of stuff, and you can get little labels on them, and they will not hold the water. Got some nice little handle. Keep your plastics all organized. Keeps my Z-Mans ready to roll. So we made it just another slide up here, and one of the most important things you can do here, even if you don't think it's important, is to hit a wave point, because me and Chris caught 4 or 5 fish pretty close together there quick, and we want to be able to go back to that area, or at least kind of see how the fish are moving, if nothing else. We've been making a couple different slides here, and the boats will spook these fish. The fish are swimming, right? They got fins. I mean, they're not always going to be in one spot. So watching that trail and also the angle that the wind switches on your trail, so you can set up exactly and hit that right, is really important too. So GPS is a really important tool doing this. Yeah, hummingbird, that Lake Master chip on there is so naughty, because a couple of our fish came on this, what was a slight little hump that you wouldn't have known otherwise. I felt like I just missed one, and Mr. Chris, this is on the plastic.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to turn you into a plastic freak. You used to be, back when we fished together a long time ago, when we didn't have grays, you were more of a plastic guy than now, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think even then, like I say, a lot of times the hair jigs weren't always the thing right away, and it became a lot more popular.
Chris, sometimes the sometimes 2 rods is a downside.
I know.
You know, honestly, if you are catching them good, you don't want it. Because that one cost me definitely by having the other rod and trying not to dump it in. Because if you guys would have watched about a couple minutes ago there, I about put a nice G Loomis in the lake. It would have been nice for somebody to find someday, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, sometimes jigging 2 rods is not always for everyone. It can sometimes, like you say, change your focus and everything. Sometimes just going to 1 could actually be more.
The 2 thing almost cost me again. Oh, Chris,
oh,
wow, that net
net.
job. Wow, wow. Chris,
It wasn't that bad. Come on, people.
Chris, that was marginal. So here, in all seriousness, is the thing. We put a stinger on there because. But if I can get this out of the old Beckman there you go, thank you. But you notice, you see, that's the thing I like about the plastic. You know, that paddle tail provides a little, I don't know whether you want to say it's thumping or whatever, but that thing is not going to come off. Chris couldn't even lost that one, I got to be honest. But that's the thing I really like about the plastics. And you notice too, you can see that paint off there. That's a 3/4 ounce moon eye, even though we're in, you know, less than 15 feet of water. And thump, thump, thump is what we're doing with that. So the other thing that we've noticed, Chris, we were just talking, is there's a harder bottom right here. So this is a soft bottom, generally speaking, but we went through a little stretch, and I literally just hit a wave point. So for future, that there was definitely some rocks in there. But you know, that hair jig started so strong, and now we're almost 50-50. But hanging them over the side, something we tell you normally not to do. Nice one, Mr. Chris. Look. Oh, yeah. Did you get him? Oh, Mr. Chris in the Beckman. That thing is showing me how excited he is, and it was barely hooked in the stinger hook, and it flew out. You know, that's the thing is a lot of those stinger hooks, like the VMCs, a lot of them are, actually, you know what, it broke. Chris, it broke.
Oh,
this was one of our homemade ones.
Oh, wow.
It broke it. It was all, that's what happened. Broke it in the net. But he still went and got it, so. But, you know, a little, oh boy, look at the bottom of that boat. He is excited to see Daddy. But in all seriousness, so, you know, Chris makes his own stinger hooks and does different stuff there, and that's what I popped on there. And that's why some of the guys like those heavier ones, because you can see what happened there. It broke the little sleeve thing, I guess, is what happened, but that will happen. If you look down here, you'll see what could have happened. And my seat, and my floor, and everything. Oh my. Here's the lures that definitely were the money makers for us today. That's 3/4 ounce moon eye, a little fire tiger action. Got a 3-inch Zman Minnowz. The pearl was pretty good. Chris caught a few on the chartreuse with a little fire tail, so who knows if that was the color thing. But I think the money maker was definitely, Chris was originally catching them on a purple jig, but this black one, the VMC, I think this is a 3/4 ounce. We had a stinger hook on there. We had one of them break off, but those were the money makers. And you notice I use small snaps. That's too big actually, but I use those small snaps on there so I can switch lures, because if I go to something else like a blade bait or whatever, I can do it really quickly. But those were the money makers. Another great evening. Me and Chris snuck out for a couple hours after a day of doing other things. Jigging Lake Erie walleyes. That's kind of one, we don't do it enough. We used to do it a lot. Now we just don't have the time, and it's, you know, people want to catch big fish when they come here, but it's nice to test out different things. And it's crazy how things haven't changed at all in 20 some years of doing this, but yet a lot of things really have. The equipment's gotten better. Lures are still similar, but those plastics just a little different variety of what we used before, right?
Yep, same with, like I say, the lines gotten better for sure. And then, like I say, the different plastics, the scents that are on them already, the durability especially has come a long ways.
On that, we're going in for it's pitch black.